Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with another in our episodes of Dave's Faves. And today I'm talking about Rachmaninoff's Symphony No. 2, his most popular symphony. It's not my favorite. I actually like the first better. But number 2 is the most popular one. It's the one most of us get to hear first when we listen to these symphonies. I actually think it's also gorgeous. I mean, there's nothing not to love there. It's really incredibly beautiful and sort of the apotheosis of that dark, brooding, luscious Russian lyricism that we sort of think about when we think about Russian music. I mean, it's really very, very fine stuff. Now, there are a million recordings of the Second Symphony, and there are lots of very good ones, and I've talked about those, of course, in the repertoire video on the Second Symphony. However, my personal favorite is this one, the Royal Philharmonic, conducted by Yuri Timmerkanoff on Warner. It's CMI, it's Warner. Now, Warner has never known what to do with this recording. Frankly, it's the best one they've ever made. But they have a bunch of them, including at roughly the same time, Andrei Previn and the London Symphony, who they were plugging like crazy. And that was the one that everybody talked about. That was the one that the Penguin Guide recommended. That was the one that Gramophone was having an orgasm over. And this one was better. I don't even know why they bothered to make it. They released it on their cheapy, as I recall, Seraphim label as a budget release. And I remember putting this on and going, wow. That's the real deal. Now, Previn's is very, very good. It's extremely good. But this one not only is a more exciting performance, but it's better recorded, and everything about it's better. It's really the best Rachmaninoff 2 I've ever heard. And there have been many, many good ones. I mean, there's Ormandy's, which is cut, the mono one. But it's still, the Columbia one, it's stereo, but it's still marvelous for all the cuts and slices and dices. There's Fischer on Channel Classics with Budapest Festival. There's the new Slatkin. There's all kinds of good performances. Some people take the exposition repeat in the first movement, which I think is insane. It makes it awfully long. The only advantage to taking the exposition repeat in the first movement is that you get to hear where the exposition starts, because they go back and they do it again, because there's a big, long introduction, and the whole piece kind of flows along with similar textures. And so it's nice to know where the actual exposition begins. I mean, if you're curious about the form of the first movement, which is actually quite good. It doesn't need to be cut. It doesn't need to be chopped up. It's perfectly fine. The thing about Timmerkanoff, and he recorded this twice. He did another one for RCA a bit later, which is also quite good, but it's not as good as this one. Anyway, the thing about Timmerkanoff is that live he was the worst in terms of cutting and dicing and slicing Russian music. He chopped up Shostakovich's Leningrad Symphony when he saw it. And I saw him, when I saw it, that is, when I saw him do this, I saw him do Rachmaninoff 2 with St. Petersburg at the time, or Leningrad, or whatever it was back then. I don't know how long ago it was. And the finale lasted like 5 minutes. It was ridiculous. It went, I mean, that was it. He just cut out everything in the middle. I couldn't believe it. And I was horrified because afterwards I was talking to the president of BMG at that time. It was a guy named Gunter Hensler or something like that. And he said to me, "Wasn't that wonderful? He's going to be recording it for us." And I said to him, "Is he going to do it with all those cuts?" And the guy looked at me with this blank stare and said, "Cuts? What cuts?" And I just went, "Oh dear. Oh my. Okay." Anyway, he didn't do it with cuts. His recordings are come scritto, exactly as written. Beautiful. Why doesn't he play it that way? I don't know. Now, there are two textural issues with this symphony, aside from the cuts, that I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about, because we had discussions back and forth in the comments about them, but I want to sort of make my stand, at least in this video, so you know where they are. And they're tiny points, they really are. But they are, I think, significant in what they tell us about how conductors understand the syntax of the music, what Rachmaninoff is trying to say. The end of the first movement The last note is for double basses. It's bump, 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 wolf, the double basses. A lot of conductors add a timpani stroke with the basses because the basses are not very loud. They're kind of gruff. I think it has to be the way Rachmaninoff wrote it. First of all, there's no reason he couldn't have put a timpani stroke in there if he wanted one. It's not like he didn't have the drum. It's 3-drum tuning. It's the tonic note, which is E. The timpanist is sitting there with his E, all ready to rock. All he had to do was go whap, and you have it. But Rachmaninoff didn't do that. Why didn't he do it? The reason is because if we're talking about the grammar of the music, the movement ends with a period, not with an exclamation point. The most important last statement is dump, bump, 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 bump. It's not supposed to be as loud as the huge chord for full orchestra that precedes it. It's a period. It's a stop, but it's not the last word. I mean, if you were acting it out, let's just say it was a theatrical thing, you would go, okay, I've had it. Take that, you jerk. That's what it would be. It's the obscene gesture, silent obscene gesture. The words, take that, you jerk, and then, that's the ending. And it works so well if you just, accept it for what it is. It's just a period. It's not an expostulation. And so that's the end of the first movement. I do not like the timpani stroke there. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it changes the meaning of what Rachmaninoff is trying to say and makes it rather conventional, whereas what Rachmaninoff wants to say is actually rather interesting in the way he says it. Now, the finale is the other issue. Before the big lyrical tune returns, that big, yummy lyrical tune. Ya da 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 da. Oh, it's just gorgeous. There's a huge climax that comes before it, right? The trumpets and cymbals and bass drum, they're going da 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 da, crash, crash, bang, crash. Then everyone else comes in, and the lyrical tune returns. So there's already been a big smashy climax, but what a lot of conductors do is just before that tune comes in the empty space before it, because there's like a breath pause. Conductors hate empty space. They do this. Like that. And then the tune comes in. Ya da 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 da. Oh, there we go. I only used my little pair of cymbals for that. So if I used the big ones, it would have been even nastier. Again, it's not understanding what Rachmaninoff's syntax is. What happens when you see something that's gorgeous and beautiful? It takes your breath away. It's an inhalation. It's da-da-da-dum-pa, da-da-da-dum-pa, da-da-dum-pa, ya-da-da-da-da. That's what it is. It's so beautiful. Here we go, right? That's it. You don't sneeze. It's not da-da-da-dum-pa, da-da-da-dum-pa, da-da-da-dum-pa. Instead of, you're going da-da-da-dum-pa, da-da-da-dum-pa, achoo! Ya-da-da-da-da. No, it's wrong. It's all wrong. It misses the whole poetry of the moment when you put a stupid cymbal crash there. It's ridiculous. So I really don't like that cymbal crash. It's wrong. And Rachmaninoff didn't write it. And where he did put them makes perfect sense where he did put them. And again, these are tiny points. If the performance is fabulous, I can live with it. I really can. It's not such a big deal in that sense. But it really does say something about what the conductor is thinking and how he thinks the music would be most effective versus what Rachmaninoff thought how the music would be most effective. And I'm telling you, Rachmaninoff was right. Make no mistake. But in any case, my choice is this Timmerkanoff Royal Philharmonic performance on Warner, which is glorious. On this particular disc, it may be hard to find. It's a twofer, coupled with Andrei Previn's perfectly, dreadfully boring Tchaikovsky Manfred Symphony, one of the great snoozeroos in the history of music. But that's okay, because I never listened to it. You just play the Rachmaninoff, and you will be happy, because it's glorious. So thank you for joining me, friends. Keep on listening. Take care.